Good afternoon to you both. Great to see you. So we know that tough economic decisions lie ahead. I'd like both of you to answer this, but I'll start with you, Robert. What taxes would you like to see go up, or what cuts would you like to see take place to plug the gap? Could be up to 30, could be 40 billion.
Well, this is obviously a really difficult question, a really difficult time for us. I mean, the thing that we can have real confidence in now, and we're going to get detail on this from the new Prime Minister and from Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor. They'll need to sit down and they'll need to go through the books, as it were, in detail, look at each department, look at areas where there may be efficiencies that can be taken, and also look at a way that they can increase revenue. Because the thing that the Prime Minister is going to be absolutely clear about, that he's going to be absolutely determined to show, is that he has a real grip and that you have stable, competent, calm government for these challenging times.
Competent, calm government returns. But where would you like to see the public spending axe fall, or which taxes would you like to see go up? There's a public spending black hole.
Yeah, I mean, it's no Conservative wants to see any taxes go up. I think we have to accept that, there is going to have to be some hard fiscal decisions taken. And as to which particular ones, I think that we've got to wait and see what the government comes up with. We've got to wait to see the people who've got the books, who've gone through them in real detail, and are able to give us the real definite answer to that, rather than me speculating now.
And Jenny Chapman, how does Keir Starmer take this new Prime Minister to task? Clearly there are difficult questions for him over Suella Braverman, and indeed now the timing of the budget and what we're likely to find on November the 17th.
Well, I mean, the first thing I just wanted to say to add a couple of very simple things that the government ought to be doing right now. One is abolishing non-dom status, which would raise just over $3 billion every year. And the other one is on the tax status of private schools, where we'd be spending that money on providing breakfast clubs for primary school children. So there are some things that the government could and should be doing today that would really support families up and down the country. As for what Keir should be challenging Rishi Sunak on, I think he has to ask him about this extraordinary appointment of Suella Braverman, who just a week ago was forced to resign because she'd broken security rules. And now he reappoints her as what looks like part of some grubby deal with his own party to avoid having to lose another leadership election. And I do hope that Keir asks Rishi Sunak about that.
Courts, a grubby deal?
So I think that's slightly unfair. I mean, I think what the Prime Minister is trying to do is, it's my point that I made a moment ago about showing that we've got calm, competent government. What he's going to want to do is to show that, the party is united, because that's the way that we're going to deliver for the things people want us to be working on. They'll want us to demonstrate that we've got a grip of government, that we are able to deal with the challenging financial circumstances we have. And to do that, he's got to bring everyone together. That's what you're seeing the Prime Minister doing. And Suella Braverman's got a very clear, strong agenda. She's determined to deliver on some of the things that really matter to people out there, like making sure that we're controlling immigration, for example. So with that strong person in the Home Office and that very strong, competent, clear, principled leadership of the Prime Minister, I really think we're going to see a new chapter today, and this is much better news for the country as a whole.
I mean, if I could just come back on that, I don't think it is competent or a sign of strength to be forced by your parliamentary party to reappoint somebody who was sacked for breaking the rules, when that person is going to have to work closely with security services, with the police, on fighting terrorism and organised crime, and they themselves broke security rules. Don't think that shows strength. I think that shows weakness.
So I take Jenny's point, of course, but I think we also do have to recognise that the Home Secretary as now, Suella, she did resign at the time. She apologised for that. She accepted it, and the letter was very clear about this. She accepted what she'd done wrong, and she paid the penalty for that by resigning. But I do think now we've got to look at who's the best person for the job, and I think for the reasons I've given, she is.
Robert, that we need more immigration to boost growth.
So there's a lot of different ways in which we can boost growth. You're going to be hearing from the government with a real detailed plan about how that happens. We also have to make sure people are concerned about immigration. There's no two ways about that. They want to see that we have control. They want to see that the system that we have is operating in everybody's best interests. There will, of course, be times when you want the brightest and the best from wherever in the world to come and help out. We also need to make sure that we are training people in the UK as well. So you're going to see that programme from the government, but we have to make sure that we're demonstrating that we are concerned about and are acting on and have gripped the issues that people are worried about.
Chapman, looking at the bigger picture, has Rishi Sunak now bought this government enough time, the 2 years until the next general election, despite, of course, Keir Starmer still pushing for that, and that will be very much dependent on November the 17th?
I think that the Conservative Party feels as if it's walked back from the brink of certain annihilation. You can hear that in Robert's tone today, but actually the fundamental problems are still there. They remain the same. The party doesn't have an agenda that's going to fix our economy or support working people. People are still being faced with, on average, a £500 a month increase on their mortgage payments. This is just not something that the public can bear. And actually, you do see growing support for a general election up and down the country. And the reason for that is that nobody voted for this agenda, and there is no legitimacy now to this government to do the things that it says it wants to do. This is a problem. It's a problem of democracy, and it's one that I'm afraid is only fixed by a general election.
So it won't surprise you, of course, I disagree strongly with Jenny about that. Look, you know, the issue is, it's about whether you're gripping on the issues that people need. I'll explain that we are. We have a very clear, strong mandate that comes from the 2019 general election. We have a 70-seat majority, and that manifesto mandate is there. And you see in the Prime Minister and the appointments he's made to his cabinet and the way he's gripping it, that he is absolutely clear that we're going to be delivering on that manifesto mandate. And that's what we need people to do. We don't want politicians to be arguing about politics with other politicians for months rather than tackling the economic issues that Jenny quite rightly draws attention to. That's what I want to be focusing on. Whereas, of course, for self-evident reasons, Labour Party are going to keep continuing to argue for an election.
But we need an election because this Prime Minister has no democratic legitimacy, and that is just as plain as the nose on your face. You're not delivering on your 2019 election manifesto, not even on the very simple things that you promised, like ending this Brexit row with Europe. You're keeping it going with your Northern Ireland Protocol row. Why are you doing that? You should be absolutely focused on finding solutions, on resolving the issues that are facing ordinary working people. You've put their taxes up. You've failed to have any growth for the last 12 years to speak of. Look at what's happening in our schools. Look how many people are waiting for treatment on the NHS. Everywhere you look, there is mess, and you look at the top of the government and you see chaos. And you cannot have a country like ours, in the situation we are now, being led in this sheer chaotic manner. It's no wonder the public stick to the back teeth with it all. They do want an election, and I think that the Prime Minister ought to be big enough, and if he's that confident about himself, then he ought to give them that chance to vote.
Quick answer from both of you. Hopefully we'll get to it before we go to PMQs. What do you think the weakest point that Keir Starmer is? How do you does Rishi plan to attack him? And same question to you about Rishi Sunak, Jenny, but very, very brief.
So Keir fundamentally just doesn't have a plan. He's very good at pointing out where things are going wrong, but he's really bad at saying what it is that he will do. You're going to see a real contrast for that with Rishi, someone who's got detail and grip.
Well, we do have a plan. I've already given a couple of examples of it in this interview. But obviously Rishi's weaknesses are that he has no mandate and that he hasn't faced the scrutiny of an election and won it, and that he has no idea what's going on the ground for working people in this country. That is a really fundamental problem for a government that needs to turn the country round, and that, I'm afraid, is just not sustainable, and that's why we think we need to have an election.
Jenny and Robert, thank you very much.